First of all, I think if you have the chance to monitor someone, a human being, over a longer period of time, then you look at, are the words, the actions, and the values are aligned, right? And does someone tells you the truth even if it feels uncomfortable? Is someone respecting your boundaries? Is something which is there emotional transparency? Does someone try to be always perfect, or is showing vulnerability in some cases also? Is it also the case? So I would look personal out of my experience, looking at the human being over a longer period of time. When it comes to words, actions, and values, are they aligned? And when I don't have the chance to monitor someone over a longer period of time, and it's about, does someone feel instantly trustworthy? It's about micro expressions and is someone, the voice tone, the energy, and also can you identify yourself with that person? For example, if you watch a movie or a TV show and there are 4, 5, 6 different characters, you usually instantly, immediately, or after a short period of time, identifying yourself with a certain character more than you identify yourself with the other characters, because you feel seen by that character, and you can feel that character, and you can understand the behavior of that character, because there's something inside of your own human system which feels close to you. So these are the points I would say out of my personal experience. What I think about the future, I think it will be more about who says it instead of what is said.
Gstaad, you have some of the most fascinating content online, because your content is almost a paradox or a contradiction, because you have content that sort of makes fun of the rich, yet it is the uber wealthy that also love following you the most. So can you explain to us how you pull that off?
Thank you for the question and for the opportunity to be on the stage. It's a beautiful, beautiful opportunity. I ask myself the same question every day. I think I figured out the answer, but ultimately, my content is using the language of comedy to talk about the world of high net worth people and the ways they consume, the ways they interact with the world around them. And comedy is a great tone of voice to make things more digestible. And occasionally, I do poke fun at these people. However, as you very well said, they are people with enormous privilege. So you could in some ways say it's bullying up. But I think bullying up is practically impossible, because it ultimately turns into humorous praise. So although I can say, oh, this type of person is so funny because they're so ridiculous with their watch collection, they can say, haha, please stop. But it's a praise, ultimately. And people who aren't in that position, they feel heard. And that's who the majority of my audience is people who may have some level of aspiration, may even have some level of disagreement. And that's how I build the trust. They understand that there is some ridicule in anything that is indeed a luxury, not a necessity. And the humor builds that trust with the audience.
Raj, you have a really fascinating background. Life for you and your career started door to door at 16 selling soap. And then you started online, not through advocacy, not through necessarily art. You started by listening. And I think it almost seems also like some sort of paradox. How is it, first, can you tell us a little bit about how did it all start for you? But then second, what caused you to say, I'm going to kind of flip the script rather than maybe have a megaphone, maybe I'll give a microphone to the audience and be someone who listens to everyone?
I grew up selling door-to-door soap, right? And when you do that at a very early age, you realize one thing very fast, that people don't buy from people who talk at them. People buy from people who understand them. And here's what's fascinating. At every level of my life, from that door-to-door selling to today when I speak to the world leaders, the family offices, the billionaires, the astronauts, the athletes, they all have this one thing in common. They don't need someone around them who they're starving to talk at them. They really need someone who understands them. And that's the key insight, where everybody was trying to broadcast and build their audience. I was just trying to understand audience. And because I was understanding them on a regular, consistent basis, I think I just built and happened to end up building an audience.
Did you have a light bulb go off in the beginning when you were trying to understand your audiences? What was the first thing where you thought, wow, I was completely out of touch. I didn't realize that was what was on people's minds?
Here's how I approach content, that to understand what's going on in people's mind. And I think here's an insight which everybody can follow in their worlds as well. We all say that we are living in an attention economy. I think that's wrong. That era is gone completely. We live in trust economy. And trust gets built when you listen longer, not when you shout out louder. So here's what you have to do. Every day you understand and listen, because you have to build connection. And there's no better way to build trust rather than building just listening mechanism in some way. So you read everything, you talk to people, you hear them talk about something, and the longer you listen, every time you're creating a small micro deposit of trust in their mind. The more you do it, the better your audience will get.
Meryem, I think a theme that we've heard here now is this idea of authenticity. But I think, there's kind of an irony that if we said, if you want a followership, be more authentic. And then the more someone attempts to be more authentic, the more maybe performative that authenticity is. But why would you say some voices feel authentic to the next generation while others might feel manipulative, even when they're saying probably the exact same thing?
Yeah, that is a very interesting question, because we as human beings, we manipulate ourselves so often. How often do we manipulate ourselves and telling us something is true about ourselves because someone in our childhood told us it is that way, and the whole life we are fighting with that self-manipulation. So when it comes to the outside manipulation, it's even a different kind of level. So the thing is, manipulation is control in the end of the day. So if something feels something feels like it is controlling you, it's over-performative, as you said so well, then it doesn't feel right. When in acting, they say, if something feels rehearsed, it's not alive. So I think, for example, manipulation says, I want to control you. Authority says, believe in me. And authenticity says, I'm with you. So in a world which is more and more uncertain, people want to feel safe. So I think that's why authenticity is the key.
Gstaad, you've mentioned that comedy is your language, but your product is luxury journalism. In a world where many kind of have this fear of being canceled, do you feel like satire has become one of the only safe ways to really speak truth to authority and power?
I wouldn't say one of the only safe ways, but I would say it's a more pleasant way. I think we can use a good dinner analogy here. The person at dinner who's pleasant to hear talk and throws in a couple of jokes, no matter how serious the topic or the intention, will usually gain more trust in that conversation. And I love what Raj was saying about the attention economy shifting to a trust economy, because I think similar to a job interview or even a great date, you can do a lot of theatrics to get through the door, but how you stay in the room is entirely different. And The same thing is true for social media. People can use lies and manipulation and theatrics to get that first hook of attention. But ultimately, the truth will win. And I think we live in an era of knowledge and great access to knowledge where the truth always comes out. So it's a great first date tip. Be yourself from the start. Focus on the truth, and you can use the comedy for delivery. But I think as the product, the longevity changes drastically.
Raj, anyone who's interacted with any of your content knows that you exhibit a remarkable amount of vulnerability. Is there a point, though, when vulnerability goes too far?
Yes. Here's a take, right? Everybody feels that you need to be vulnerable in order to lead the next generation, in order to lead your people. That's partially true, because I'll tell you there are two types of vulnerability, okay? One is the first type of vulnerability, which is emotional leakage, where you are going out, sharing all your emotions, and you're doing it. The more you do it, the more anxiety and uncertainty you create, because even you don't know what to say and what not to do, right? You're just dumping all your thoughts out. Your people don't want that. Your people want to see you as a strong leader who can lead them out of the way, not somebody who's crying in front of them in order to gain sympathy. So if you are actually in a space where you're emotionally leaking in front of your people, I would highly suggest that you do that in front of a therapist, not in front of your people. Right? So that's one. But here's a second way of vulnerability, which is structured honesty. Everybody who's following you is looking up to you, not to see you as someone who's emotionless and always be like, I'm powerful and come follow me. No. Structured honesty is, yes, I know what's going on. Yes, we are in a mess. Yes, this is the truth of our reality, but here's what we're going to do next. So you show the direction as well. You're not just trying and talking about your emotions. You're telling the world that this is the right way to do. I am with you in this. Even I don't know sometimes, I'm figuring out, but here are the next possible ways that we're all going to come out of this together. So if you are on the emotional leakage side, that vulnerability is something of a problem. I'll put it this simple way. Every time you share your emotions, if that creates more uncertainty and anxiety, it's too much. Every time you share emotions, that creates more honesty, transparency, and shows people a way to get out of that chaos, I think that's the right kind of vulnerability that people should do.
Okay, I'm going to ask you, each of you, kind of a quick lightning round, because we're unfortunately coming up on our time. But you know, Meryem, I've read that when you become a public figure, sometimes you are giving pieces of yourself to millions of people. If you agree that that is true, how do you protect your own sense of self while you're giving yourself to millions?
Oh, me as an actress, like, it is intentional if I go out there and connect with human beings, connecting with people. So I do that intentional. And the rest of the time, I'm just at home.
Gstaad, Seth Godin has this thing where he says that truth doesn't spread because it's true. It spreads because someone decides that it's worth noticing. Now, you have this tension between your characters. Constance is quiet truth, Colton is loud theater. Would you say that in today's algorithm, does truth now have to become theater in order to be heard?
I do think so. I think that language is an undeniable way to deliver a message well or deliver a message poorly. And there is a certain language on social media that's needed to gain attention, no matter the message. That could come in the form of fonts, could come in the form of great video, great audio, whatever it may be, that is the chosen language. And I think, unfortunately, a bad message told well will outperform a good message told poorly today. So it's very important that good messages are also told well, so they can win as truth.
But what does that say about what society has become today? Is that something for us to be concerned about?
I think it's something to acknowledge, where society is gullible and humans want to believe humans are hopeful. And people in power and people without power forever have had reasons to make a lie thought to be a truth. And it's the responsibility of people who carry the truth to actually make sure that's delivered in the best way possible. And the audience are just recipients. I think this is a supply issue more than it is a demand issue.
Raj, final word. You talk to many leaders, you listen to the youth, and you're kind of a bridge between both of them. But what's one thing that you think that leaders in this room think they know about the next generation that they are actually completely wrong about?
Every time I speak to leaders in a room like this, I often hear from a lot of people. I can't say that this is true for everyone, but majority of people say this, that the younger generation, the next generation, Gen Z, they are lazy, they're distracted, and they're entitled. And I think that's completely wrong. We are not lazy, we are just allergic to meaningless work. We are not distracted, we are overly informed. So we want to be opinionated, and we are not entitled because, and here's something I want to say. We just don't want to work with leaders who don't give us equal authority. And the problem is kind of created by people who we look up to, like people like you. You know, every one of you, you've worked insanely hard to create such a good world for us and given us so many options that because we have so many options, we only want to choose to work with leaders who we feel comfortable and safe with, not with somebody who thinks that just because they've created the world, we need to follow them. So it's like, because you've created such an admired world, we only want to follow leaders who give us authority, who give us trust, and who actually understand what we bring on table at the same time. So that's something I believe most of the people get wrong about the younger generation.
Raj, Gstaad, Meryem, as I mentioned, the one thing that Gallup has discovered that what people want to see in leaders is hope. And I think each of you in your own unique ways are delivering that for millions. So thank you for doing that for the world, and thank you for being here today. Thank you.
Thank you.